It's not just the resumption of hostilities that's shocking, it's the high proportion of children who found themselves in the firing line as Israel pulled the trigger and shattered the peace. Still dusty and being given oxygen to ease her breathing, our cameraman asked this girl called Jana her age. "I'm 13 years old," she replied. The surprise strikes caught Gaza completely off guard. This IDF footage shows one of the world's most advanced warplanes dropping a bomb on tents. The fact that some of the victims of the airstrikes had to be ferried to hospital by horse and cart underlines the overall mismatch and Gaza's helplessness.
I'm lightheaded, I'm dizzy, and I mean, it was just mostly women and children, burnt head to toe, limbs missing, heads missing.
The civilian death toll, it seems to be absolutely horrendous. Do you accept that?
In this case, there was an element of elimination of terrorists, so obviously you can't give a warning to those specific areas, but we do everything in our power to make sure that we are targeting those terrorists, that the civilians are not in the line of fire.
For their part, Hamas say the Israeli offensive has put the lives of the surviving hostages in Gaza at even greater risk. Tonight, several hostages released during the ceasefire took part in a demonstration against its breakdown.
And all hostages must be returned to their families.
The Israeli Prime Minister has also gone on television to try to justify his decision.
To those who criticize Israel, I ask, what would you do if terrorists murdered and kidnapped your children? You would do what we are doing. In the face of pure evil, free societies have no choice but to fight.
The air raids resulted in a procession of funerals in Gaza this afternoon. Among those in mourning was a woman who lost all her immediate family. She said she woke up to find her husband and children dead and that the children died hungry. It's more than 2 weeks since Israel halted all aid deliveries into Gaza, and the food queues are getting fraught. Desperation is becoming commonplace. This afternoon, many Gazans were on the move yet again, heeding IDF warnings to flee danger zones. Displacement, hunger, grief, fear of what tonight, let alone tomorrow, might bring. Gaza has been plunged into darkness once more. John Irvine, News at 10, Tel Aviv.
Well, Rohit, our global security editor, is here with me in the studio, as you can see. And Rohit, a lot has changed since the ceasefire was agreed earlier this year. While many might be horrified by what they're seeing this evening, a lot of people won't actually be surprised, will they?
No, I mean, this ceasefire is 58 days old now. And although last night's operation was labelled a surprise strike, it is no surprise that this ceasefire has collapsed. That has seemed almost highly likely from day one. But there's so much fury from diplomats we've been speaking to in the Middle East tonight because of the consequence of what happened on day 2 of the ceasefire, the inauguration of President Donald Trump. And the sense is that this is what gave momentum to this course of action from the Israeli government. The suspicion is that, for example, the strikes that the US carried out against Houthi rebels earlier in this week were done in tandem with the Israelis to remove one of the potential responses from an allied group of Hamas. You know, Netanyahu has been playing a long-term game. This is a ceasefire which has now sort of straddled 2 US administrations. And peace talks, ceasefire agreements are built on trust, but that trust has now eroded, and there are real consequences from that. Take, for example, the opinions of the Qataris tonight. Their Prime Minister has been speaking today, the principal mediator who here announced the ceasefire. He said that this is yet another heinous crime by the Israelis, and perhaps more significant than that is the views of the Saudi Arabians, which ally with what the Qataris are saying. That's so important because there is so much hope, particularly from the Trump administration, being landed on the possibility of this normalization of a relationship between Saudi Arabia and Israel. That is seen as the potential path towards peace. At the moment, it seems there's almost no hope of that happening.
OK, Rohit, thank you very much. And let's go back to John as well, who's in Tel Aviv for us this evening. And John, 48 hours ago, an Israeli delegation was in Cairo talking about peace. Tonight, it looks like Prime Minister Netanyahu is absolutely determined to take this war to what he hopes will be its conclusion. Is that it now, do you think, for the prospect of peace?
Not quite, Paul, and I say that for a couple of reasons. Firstly, so far Hamas have not struck back in any shape or form. And secondly, in the midst of all his fighting talk, Mr. Netanyahu did just about leave the door open to future peace talks. Now, he actually made two statements tonight, one in English, one in Hebrew. The Hebrew version was slightly more detailed. In it, he said that from now on, Israel would act against Hamas with increasing intensity. And from now on, negotiations would only take place under fire. But he did mention that word, negotiations. Now, Mr. Netanyahu also said that the reason he ordered the airstrikes was Hamas's refusal to accept an American plan to extend the ceasefire. In exchange for the release of a few more hostages, there would be a few more weeks of peace during which a permanent ceasefire could be discussed. I think the inference is that if Hamas do an about-face and accept that American plan, then the ceasefire could be reinstated. While Hamas consider their position, the Israeli attacks will continue. It boils down to this, I think, Paul. If Hamas relent and agree to the American plan, then Hamas may be spared the hell that Donald Trump has warned of, and if they don't, it won't.
OK, John, in Tel Aviv, thank you very much indeed.